Ever heard of a mercenary leading a bicycle troop?
A bicycle troop.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
It's not the start of a bad joke. It's Bob Denard's life. We're going deep on this French mercenary, the guy who became a self-made king in Africa, no less.
It's one of those stories, really gets at the chaos, the brutality of Africa right after the colonial period. You have all these new nations figuring things out. And guys like Denard, they saw an opening.
Right, so picture this. 1929 France. Baby Gilbert Bugeaud is born. That's our guy, Bob Denard, before the name change. Normal so far, right?
Normal enough.
Except this guy's life.
And
Anything but. We're talking French Navy, Indochina War, then Algeria.
those wars, especially Algeria, they did more than just give him combat experience. It's where his worldview really solidified. Fiercely anti-communist, which you'll see becomes a driving force for him.
Hold on to that thought because it gets wilder. This guy goes from soldier to, get this, plotting to kill the French prime minister.
And that wasn't just talk. Denard truly believed that the prime minister was betraying France by giving up their colonies. Extreme actions, yeah, landed him 14 months in prison, but...
But it's like it backfired.
Exactly. Instead of stopping him, it just hardened his resolve.
And so begins the mercenary chapter. First stop, Katanga, right when it's kicking off its own fight for independence, early 60s.
Think mineral-rich region, stuck in the middle of the Cold War tug-of-war. Everyone wants a peace. Add in Katanga trying to break away from the Republic of Congo, and you've got, well...
Recipe for disaster.
Right.
Or opportunity, depending on who you ask.
Right, and for someone with Denard's skills, his ambition, it was like walking onto a movie set. Katanga was just the start.
Oh yeah, from there it's like he's got a map of Africa and he's checking off conflicts. Congo, Angola, Rhodesia, which then became Zimbabwe, by the way, Gabon, Benin, you name it.
And he wasn't just there to observe. We're talking coups, propping up rebel groups, even whole governments sometimes. Denard was all about the power plays. And those newly independent African nations, they were fertile ground for that kind of chaos.
But there's one place that's basically joined at the hip with Bob Denard, a place he just kept going back to, Comoros Islands.
That's where Denard's story goes from mercenary for hire to something bigger, almost Shakespearean, you could say. This tiny island nation off the coast of Africa, it became his stage.
And not just for a quick visit either. Didn't he try to take over the government multiple times?
Four times he tried to seize control of the Comoros. It makes you wonder what it was about that seemingly insignificant island nation that captivated him so. That's a good question, right? I mean, on the surface, it doesn't seem like the most obvious choice. But you dig a little deeper and you start to see the appeal for a guy like Denard. You've got this nation, not exactly stable, wide open to influence, perfect size for someone looking to, shall we say, manage things their own way.
So he sees an opportunity, goes for it. And not exactly quietly either, right?
Subtlety wasn't really his style. In 1978, picture this. Denard rocks up with his mercenary crew and boom, overthrows President Ali Soili. Like it was nothing. And get this.
There's more.
Oh yeah, rumor has it France might have been backing him on this one.
Wait, hold on. The French government. Now that's interesting.
This is where it gets really murky. It's like, was he following orders or just taking advantage of a situation that, just happened to align with French interests? We're talking about Jacques Foccart, the guy who basically ran France's Africa policy for years, might have given Denard the nod. Even today, historians are still debating this.
Makes you think, was Denard a pawn in a bigger game? A way for France to keep their fingers in the pie of their former colonies? Or was he using them? Playing everyone to get what he wanted. It's like, the more we learn, the less clear it gets.
Exactly. That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. But let's get back to the Comoros. So, he gets rid of Soili, but he doesn't just make himself the new leader. He puts the previous president, Ahmed Abdallah, back in charge.
Interesting play.
Right. Think about it. Suddenly, it's not a power grab, it's a restoration.
Smart. Avoids the whole dictator look, but he's still in control.
Oh, absolutely. He appoints himself head of Abdallah's presidential guard. Now he's got an army at his beck and call, the president's ear. This is where things really take off for him. Money, influence, marries into a powerful family, even converts to Islam, starts calling himself Said Mustafa Majo.
Talk about blending in.
It's calculated, right? He's cementing his place in the Comoros, becoming one of them.
Sounds like he's living the good life. For a while anyway.
Yeah.
But knowing Denard, it can't last forever, can it? What happens next? Does it all fall apart?
Oh, it does. And in true Denard fashion, it's messy, it's confusing, and no one's quite sure what really happened. And remember, this is a guy who, chaos seemed to follow him wherever he went.
So we've got Denard, living it up in the Comoros. He's got power coming out his ears, money, even a new identity. You'd think, time to relax.
You'd think. But Denard, he wasn't made for relaxing. This is a guy who, well, let's just say things happened around him, and sure enough, things start happening in the Comoros.
Uh-oh, trouble in paradise.
You could say that. Remember how he got there? Kicked out Soily, brought back Abdallah. Well, by 89, Abdallah's getting a little, tired of the puppet strings, starts making moves to cut Denard down to size.
Bold move, ballsy. So what, does Denard just take it?
That exactly. Abdallah signs this decree, wants to disarm the armed forces, which for Denard, who's running the Presidential Guard, that's a problem.
Understandable.
And then it gets messy. Really messy. Abdallah's found dead in his office, shot.
No way.
Oh, yeah. And to make it even more interesting, Denard's injured, too.
Hold up, what? Injured how?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. No one knows for sure what went down. What we do know is Denard, he sees the writing on the wall, agrees to leave the Comoros, gets escorted out by, get this, French paratroopers. End of an era. 11 years, gone.
Just like that.
Just like that. But Denard being Denard, this isn't the end of the story.
I should have known better.
Yeah.
So what happens? They put him on trial, right?
Yeah.
For Abdallah's murder.
Bingo! Back in France, facing the music. And let me tell you, the trial, it was like something out of a spy novel. Rumors everywhere, whispers about French government involvement, even whispers of their intelligence agencies being mixed up in Abdallah's death. It was a whole thing.
Wait, so the guy who might have been working for France is now on trial, and France might be implicated. That's next level.
It gets wilder just when it seems like everything's coming out. Abdallah's family, they dropped the charges.
Seriously?
Seriously, a prosecution's left with nothing. Denard walks.
So he gets away with it.
You could say that, but the questions, they linger, like a bad smell.
You'd think he'd call it a day after that.
Denard. Retire. Never.
Of course not. So what'd he do?
Fast forward a few years. 1995, he's back at it. Another coup, another attempt to take over the Comoros. It's like he couldn't stay away.
The man had a flair for the dramatic. But same ending, right? Another failed coup.
Not quite. This time, France isn't messing around. They send in the troops, arrest Denard and his crew. Operation Kaskari, they called it. Total flop. And that was pretty much it for Denard's Comoros adventures.
So that's it, the end for our mercenary king.
Pretty much. He was convicted for this last one, but it was a slap on the wrist compared to murder. Suspended sentence. By then, Denard was already battling Alzheimer's. Died in 2007.
Sad end.
Maybe. But fitting, in a way. The man who thrived on chaos, ultimately undone by it.
It's a wild ride, this story. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. But it makes you think, what does it all mean? Was he a villain? A hero? A pawn?
That's the thing about Bob Denard. There's no easy answer. He was a product of his time, a time of upheaval, of shifting power dynamics, a time when someone like him could thrive. And the questions he raises about power, colonialism, the use of force, they're still relevant today.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder. Bob Denard, mercenary, kingmaker, enigma. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.